The United States Senate just voted 45 to 55, failing to reach the 60-vote threshold needed to keep the government open. That's 15 votes short, and in less than 12 hours at midnight tonight, a partial government shutdown begins. This is unprecedented because after the vote failed, President Trump and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer actually struck a deal, a compromise that would have funded everything except Homeland Security for 6 months, buying time to negotiate ICE reforms. But then, in a stunning twist Thursday night, Senator Lindsey Graham single-handedly killed that deal by placing what's called a hold, objecting to a provision he claimed stripped senators' rights to sue if their phone records are seized. The math is brutal and the clock just ran out. With the House on recess until Monday, there is no legislative path to stop a shutdown before midnight. Even if the Senate miraculously passes something tomorrow morning, the House physically cannot vote on it until next week. Government agencies are already preparing shutdown procedures. As we speak, we've been tracking every senator's vote, the Trump-Schumer deal that almost worked, and Lindsey Graham's last-minute objection that guaranteed this shutdown. This is the complete breakdown of how we got here, who voted how, and what shuts down at midnight. Coverage you won't get anywhere else because most media is still reporting there's hope for a deal. There isn't. This is Strategic Signal Report. I'm Sarah Mitchell. Tonight we're breaking down the Senate's failed 45-55 vote, the bipartisan deal that died Thursday night, and exactly what happens when the government shuts down in less than 12 hours. By the end, you'll understand how 8 Republican defections, 1 compromise, and 1 senator's objection just shut down the federal government for the second time in 3 months. Let's break down the vote, the deal, and the midnight deadline. Let me walk you through exactly what happened on the Senate floor Thursday afternoon. The legislation was House Resolution 7148, a 6-bill appropriations package totaling $1.3 trillion that would fund the government through September 30th, the end of the fiscal year. It included funding for defense, health and human services, labor, transportation, State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security. Under Senate rules, advancing this package required 60 votes to overcome what's called a cloture motion, essentially breaking a filibuster. Not a simple majority, 60 votes. The vote was called around p.m. Eastern on Thursday, January 29th, according to multiple reports from NPR, ABC News, and Yahoo citing Senate sources. The final tally was 45 senators voting yes, 55 voting no, 15 votes short of the 60 needed. Here's the breakdown by party. All 47 Democrats and independents voted no. That's Schumer's entire caucus unified. On the Republican side, the caucus split dramatically. 45 Republicans voted yes, but 8 Republicans joined Democrats in voting no. Those 8 Republicans include Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who votes against virtually every spending bill on constitutional grounds. That was expected. But the other 7 represent genuine defections, and some are stunning. According to Yahoo News and Time magazine reporting, the list includes Senator John Fetterman, yes, John Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania who somehow is being reported as voting with Republicans to block this, though that appears to be a reporting error since he's listed as a Democrat voting no. The actual Republican defectors, according to Senate vote tracking, include senators who were under enormous pressure from Trump to vote yes but refused. And here's the critical detail. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican, voted no, but Thune's no vote was procedural, a tactical move that allows him to bring the bill back up for another vote later under Senate rules. It wasn't a substantive opposition to the bill, so the actual vote count showing real opposition, all 47. Democrats said no because the bill included Homeland Security funding without ICE reforms after the Minneapolis shootings, and at least 7 to 8 Republicans said no, either on principle like Rand Paul or because they genuinely opposed the package. The math didn't work, the bill died, and that vote happened around 3:30 p.m. Thursday afternoon. Now here's where this story gets absolutely fascinating, because what happened next was genuinely unexpected. Within hours of that failed vote, President Trump and Senator Chuck Schumer, who have been bitter political enemies for years, actually negotiated a compromise deal, and it was a smart compromise that should have worked. According to reporting from CBS News, Roll Call, ABC News, and a statement Trump himself posted on Truth Social Thursday evening, here's what they agreed to. Split the 6-bill package into 2 pieces. Piece 1, pass 5 of the 6 bills immediately: defense, health and human services, labor, transportation, and State Department, totaling over $1 trillion in funding through September. These bills had bipartisan support and weren't controversial. Piece 2. Pass a short-term continuing resolution for the Department of Homeland Security only, funding it at current levels for just 2 weeks through February 13th. This would keep DHES open while giving Congress 2 more weeks to negotiate the ICE reforms Democrats were demanding after the Minneapolis shootings of Renee and Alex Pretti. This was genuinely clever legislating. It gave Democrats their demand to separate DHES funding so they could negotiate reforms. It gave Republicans most of what they wanted, funding defense and other agencies through September, and it gave both sides 2 more weeks to find a compromise on ICE without shutting down the government. Trump announced the deal on Truth Social, writing, quote, "Republicans and Democrats in Congress have come together to get the vast majority of the government funded until September, while at the same time providing an extension to the Department of Homeland Security," end quote. Schumer's office confirmed the deal to reporters. Leadership on both sides indicated they had the votes. The Senate was preparing to vote on the revised package Friday morning, which would have been today. The deal was done, the shutdown was going to be averted, and then Lindsey Graham blew it up. Thursday night, around p.m. Eastern, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina walked onto the Senate floor and placed what's called a hold on the compromise package. In Senate procedure, any single senator can object to unanimous consent requests, which effectively blocks legislation from moving forward quickly. It's an enormous amount of power for one person, and Graham used it. According to reporting from The Hill, CBS News, and ABC News, Graham's objection centered on a provision in the compromise deal that he claimed would strip senators' legal right to sue if their phone records were improperly seized by federal agencies. Graham argued this violated separation of powers and senatorial privilege. Graham told reporters, and I'm quoting from ABC News, "From a Republican point of view, the cops need us right now. They are being demonized. They're being spat upon. They can't sleep at night," end quote. That statement was about supporting law enforcement and ICE, but his formal objection was about the phone records provision. Legal experts immediately questioned whether that provision actually existed in the bill or whether Graham was objecting on other grounds and using that as cover. But regardless of his reasoning, the effect was immediate and devastating. By placing a hold, Graham forced Senate leadership to go through the full legislative process, debate, amendments, another cloture vote requiring 60 senators, which takes days. There was no time for that. The government funding deadline was midnight Friday, less than 24 hours away. Senate Majority Leader John Thune tried to work around Graham's objection. He told reporters late Thursday, quote, "Tomorrow's another day, and hopefully people will be in a spirit to try and get this done tomorrow," end quote, from ABC News. But the math was impossible. Even if Thune gets unanimous consent from 99 senators, if one senator objects, the bill can't pass under expedited procedures, and with the House on recess until Monday, even if the Senate somehow passed something Friday morning, it would need to go back to the House for approval. The House isn't in session. They physically cannot vote. Lindsey Graham's objection guaranteed a shutdown, and he knew it when he walked onto that floor. So let's walk through what actually happens when the clock strikes midnight tonight and government funding expires. This is what's called a partial shutdown, not a full shutdown, because some agencies were already funded through separate appropriations bills passed earlier. Social Security checks still go out. Medicare continues. The military stays operational. Those were funded separately, but the agencies that were supposed to be funded by this failed package, they go dark. The Department of Homeland Security enters shutdown mode immediately, according to DHES's contingency plan, which is publicly posted on dhs.gov. Approximately 167,000 DHES employees are classified as essential personnel. That means they keep working but don't get paid until the shutdown ends. Another 43,000 employees are furloughed, immediately sent home without pay. Those 167,000 essential workers who keep working without paychecks include Border Patrol agents, ICE officers, TSA airport security screeners, Coast Guard personnel, and Secret Service agents. They're all required to report for duty but will not receive paychecks until Congress passes funding. Here's the political irony that makes this so toxic for Trump. Those ICE agents, the ones carrying out his mass deportation agenda, his signature campaign promise, they're now working without knowing when they'll get paid. During the last shutdown, which lasted 43 days from November into early January, DHES saw massive morale problems, sick-outs, slowdowns, and resignations. Beyond DHES, the State Department also faces partial shutdown. Passport processing slows down dramatically. Visa services at embassies overseas reduced to emergency-only operations. The Transportation Department furloughs workers, which could affect FAA air traffic controller staffing, though controllers are considered essential and keep working. And here's the critical timing issue. This shutdown begins midnight Friday, January 30th. The Senate could theoretically reconvene Friday and pass something, but the House is on recess until Monday, February 2nd. Even in the absolute best-case scenario where the Senate passes a funding bill Friday morning with unanimous consent, which won't happen because Graham is objecting, the House physically cannot vote on it until Monday at the earliest. That means this shutdown lasts at minimum through the weekend, 3 days, maybe 4. And that's assuming the House comes back Monday and immediately passes whatever the Senate sends them, which, given the controversy over ICE and the Minneapolis shootings, is far from certain. Realistically, we're looking at a week-long shutdown, maybe longer. Now let's step back and understand why Democrats were so unified in voting no, even knowing it would cause a shutdown. 2 names, Renee Good and Alex Pretti. On January 7th, Renee Good, a 31-year-old mother of 3, was shot and killed during an ICE raid in Minneapolis. She was a bystander, not a target. According to police investigations and witness accounts, ICE agents were attempting to apprehend an undocumented immigrant at an apartment complex when gunfire erupted. Good was struck and died at the scene. Then on January 24th, just last Friday, 6 days ago, Alex Pretti, a 28-year-old small business owner, was shot and killed in nearly identical circumstances during another ICE operation in Minneapolis. Pretti was also an innocent bystander caught in crossfire, 2 American citizens, 2 deaths, 17 days apart, same city, same agency. The political optics were catastrophic for Republicans. How do you defend funding an agency that just killed 2 Americans in less than 3 weeks? Senator Chuck Schumer held a press conference Monday and said, quote, "This is a moment of truth. Congress must act to rein in ICE and end the violence," end quote, from NBC News. Democrats, who normally split on shutdown votes with moderates from red states voting to keep the government open, stayed completely unified this time. Even Senators Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Jackie Rosen from Nevada, and Angus King from Maine, all moderates who voted to end the previous shutdown in November, voted no on this package. The Minneapolis shootings gave Democrats political cover to force a shutdown over a principle their base cares deeply about. And unlike previous shutdown fights over abstract policy disputes, this one had victims with names and faces. That's why all 47 Democrats held together. On the flip side, Republicans fractured. Senate Majority Leader John Thune needed every Republican vote he could get. He needed to hold 53 Republicans together and then peel off 7 Democrats to reach 60. Instead, he lost at least 7 of his own members while gaining 0 Democrats. Rand Paul's no vote was predictable. He votes against spending bills on principle. But the other Republican defections reveal deeper fractures. Some Republicans, particularly those in swing states or states with large immigrant populations, faced enormous pressure from constituents who were horrified by the Minneapolis shootings, voting to fund ICE without reforms would have been politically toxic in their districts. Other Republicans genuinely believe ICE needs oversight reforms and saw this as an opportunity to force that conversation. And then there's the Lindsey Graham dimension. Graham didn't vote no on the original bill. He waited until the compromise was struck, then killed it with a procedural objection that suggests his opposition wasn't really about the phone records provision he cited. It was about something else, some Republican senators privately told reporters, according to Politico and The Hill, that Graham is positioning himself as the strongest Trump ally in the Senate by being the one who prevents any deal that could be seen as a concession to Democrats on immigration enforcement. He's playing to the base. But whatever his motivation, the effect is the same. Government shuts down at midnight. So here's where we stand with hours until shutdown. The Senate is scheduled to reconvene Friday morning at a.m. Eastern, according to the Senate's public schedule. Majority Leader Thune could attempt to bring up the compromise package again. But Lindsey Graham's objection still stands unless Graham withdraws it. Graham has given no indication he'll withdraw. In fact, his Thursday night comments to reporters suggested he's dug in. Even if Graham somehow changes his mind Friday morning and the Senate passes the compromise by unanimous consent, the bill then goes to the House. The House is on recess. They cannot vote. The earliest they could possibly consider it is Monday afternoon. So we're looking at 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, the shutdown lasts through the weekend, the House returns Monday, passes the compromise quickly, and the government reopens Monday night or Tuesday. That's the optimistic case, 3 to 4 days of shutdown. Scenario 2, the House returns Monday but doesn't immediately pass the Senate compromise. House Republicans demand changes or House Democrats demand stronger ICE reforms. The shutdown extends into next week while negotiations continue, 7 to 10 days. Scenario 3, this becomes a prolonged standoff like the 43-day shutdown that just ended in November. Both sides dig in, neither compromises, and we're looking at weeks. That seems less likely given how politically damaging the last shutdown was, but it's possible. Based on the dynamics at play, our analysis suggests Scenario 1 is most probable. The political pain of a weekend shutdown will be enough to force both chambers to pass the Trump-Schumer compromise when the House returns Monday. Graham's objection will be overridden or worked around, and the government reopens by Tuesday. But that's analysis, not certainty. The facts right now are simple. The Senate voted 45-55, the compromise deal died, and the shutdown begins at midnight. The Senate's vote failed 45-55, 15 votes short of what was needed. Then a bipartisan deal that should have worked was killed by one senator's objection. And now, barring a miracle in the next few hours, a partial government shutdown begins at midnight tonight. The question's now, how long does this last? Does the House pass the Trump-Schumer compromise Monday, or do they demand changes? And does this become the second prolonged shutdown in 3 months, or does it end quickly? This is the first time in modern history that a shutdown happened because one senator objected to a deal the president and opposing party leader had already agreed to. Lindsey Graham just became the face of this shutdown, whether he wanted to be or not. What do you think happens when the House returns Monday? Do they pass the compromise immediately, or does this drag on? Drop your analysis in the comments below. And subscribe to Strategic Signal Report for coverage of this shutdown as it develops. We'll be posting updates at AM and PM EST tracking what's closed, what negotiations are happening, and when the government might reopen. For Strategic Signal Report, I'm Sarah Mitchell. The shutdown begins at midnight. We'll see you in the next briefing.